The content on the Untold Tales channel is protected by copyright. Unauthorized use may result in legal liability. My head is pounding, as if someone drove a nail into it. A dull pain pulses in my temples, and the smell of my own sweat and blood fills my nose. I do not immediately understand where I am. My body does not respond. My hands are bound behind my back, my legs tied. Something hard is beneath me. The floor? Yes, it is my floor, my living room. And then I hear voices. Are you completely out of your mind? A woman yells. I recognize her voice instantly. Anna, my wife. She is angry, furious. But there is no panic in her voice, no fear for me or for the kids. Just rage. What did you expect? A man replies, his voice hoarse and mocking. You screwed up, baby. I freeze, barely holding my breath. Who is he? Why is she talking to him like that? Screwed up? Her voice rings with fury. You barged in here like a damn lunatic. This was not part of the plan, you bastard. Cold sweat breaks out over me. Plan? What plan? Oh, screw you, he chuckles. You blew it, baby. This is your husband, right? The good guy, the family man, who never would have guessed that his sweet little wife is actually a whore, not a yoga instructor. My heart clenches into a block of ice. Shut up, she hisses through clenched teeth. What? Does the truth hurt? He continues, pure amusement in his voice. You really thought you could control everything? Open your fitness club, got yourself some clients, and then slowly, smoothly, bam, a full-fledged brothel, all under the guise of training sessions. No one suspected a thing, and your idiot husband never saw it coming. I clench my fists so tightly my nails dig into my palms. I still do not open my eyes, do not give myself away. Let them talk. Let them say everything. Shut up, Grimoff, Anna spits. This is none of your damn business. It is my business, baby, he sneers. I covered for you. Your little whores worked under me, and I got my cut. We were in this together. And now what? You thought you could bail? That I'd just let my favorite little yogi walk away? She is silent. Ah, that's right, he continues with a poisonous smirk. You found yourself a new patron. Thought you could screw me over. Huh? Take a piece of the business. Run off, you little bitch? My head is splitting from the pain, but I keep control. Anna's voice drops, low and dangerous. We could have made a deal. Nah, baby, he grins. Too late for that. Things have changed now. Grimoff, don't touch him. Her voice is quieter now. Is she protecting me? Or, oh yeah, you really thought I wouldn't touch him? He laughs. Are you fucking serious? After you betrayed me? Then I hear footsteps. Heavy boots approaching. Then a shove. Wake up, Carpenter. He whispers near my ear. Time to face reality. I slowly open my eyes. He stands before me. Grimoff. Tall, broad, with a short buzz cut and a scar on his cheek. He wears an expensive tracksuit, a gun in his hand. He smirks like a cat that just caught a mouse. To his left, Anna. Her robe is open, with nothing underneath. Her hair is disheveled, her eyes blazing with anger. She looks at me, but not the way a wife looks at her husband. There is only irritation in her gaze. I inhale deeply, barely holding back the animalistic growl rising in my chest. Well, Pop, Grimoff kicks me in the side with his boot. Got something to say? I say nothing. Grimoff smirks, leaning over me, his dark eyes gleaming with excitement. His whole stance radiates pure, arrogant confidence. He is in control. He owns the situation. So, Carpenter, he chuckles, have you figured out just how deep they've buried you? I remain silent. Not because I have nothing to say. I just know that if I open my mouth now, I will not be able to hold myself back. And then they will kill me right here, and I cannot allow that. Not yet. Grimoff sits down on my couch, stretches out his legs, and lights a cigarette. He looks at Anna. And you bitch, he says, exhaling smoke, thought I would just let this slide? Thought you could screw me over, take a chunk of my money, and disappear? Anna stands across from him, arms crossed over her chest. Her robe is still open, her hair disheveled, her face full of anger, but there is no fear. She is not afraid for me, not for the children, only for herself. I told you, she gritted through her teeth. We could have made a deal. Grimoff laughs. A deal? He suddenly grabs her by the hair, yanks her toward him, making her yelp. You already made a deal, bitch. Now you will work for me. Anna tries to break free, but he only pulls her in tighter. Her face contorts with hatred. Go to hell, she hisses. I feel my fingers clenching into fists, even though my hands are tied. If it were not for the ropes, I would have torn out his throat, ripped that voice, that disgusting smirk right off his face. Gromov nods to his men, 3 of them. They all look at him, waiting for orders. For being a whore, he says, running his fingers along her cheek, and for trying to betray me, you're going to service all of us. Right here, in front of your cuckold. He looks at me and grins. And if you try to resist, he continues, lowering his voice, I will go get your daughters. Something inside me shatters. No, no, no. Anna freezes. Her face goes pale. Her lips tremble, but she does not scream. She does not protest. She stays silent. She does not look at me. She does not beg. She does not say I'm sorry. She just stays silent. I feel something dark rising in my chest. It is not anger. It is not hatred. It is emptiness. Gromov shoves her to her knees. Come on, bitch, he sneers. Show us how you negotiate. She hesitates, her fingers trembling, but she obeys. She does it, right in front of me. I close my eyes, but I hear them laughing. Come on, bitch, work harder. You need to impress your cuckold. I feel myself breaking apart from the inside, something burning within me in hellish flames. I am not human. I am a ghost. I am a shadow, but I will not break. I remember the smell of his cologne. I remember his voice. I remember the way his men laughed. I remember everything. And when it is my turn to speak, I will make them all beg me for mercy. Mercy that will never come. I have never been weak. Maybe as a child, deep down, I wished for a peaceful life, without fights, without struggle, without pain. But life does not work that way. If you're not ready to fight for your place under the sun, someone else will take it. I was born in a small town where people knew the value of hard work, where men's hands were calloused from childhood. My father worked at the sawmill. My mother was a school teacher. We were not rich, but we were not poor either. From an early age, I knew that if you wanted something, you had to work for it. As a child, I often watched my father as he planed wood, built furniture, carved figures from it. He could handle wood in a way that others could not even handle people, with patience, respect, precision. Wood remembers every movement of your hand. Son, he would say, running his palm over a smoothly sanded board. If you rush or work without respect, it will respond in kind. It will crack, crumble, ruin all your work. I liked it. There was a strength in wood, untouched by time. I absorbed this craftsmanship, learned to work with tools, to feel the material, to see the future creation within a raw piece of timber. But the world outside my father's workshop was different. The streets of our town did not forgive weakness. If you could not stand up for yourself, you were beaten. At school, they tried to push me into a corner, but I quickly realized that the best way not to become a victim was to strike first. I fought, often. Sometimes I lost, but I never gave up. By 16, I was stronger than most of my peers. I knew how to work with wood, could endure any physical labor, but I also understood something else. I needed a way out. If I stayed in this town, I would become just like my father. A good, honest laborer. But I wanted more. At 18, I signed a contract and joined the army. I knew it would be hard, but I did not care. I was used to working, used to enduring, used to surviving. They sent me into reconnaissance. And there, I realized that until that moment, I knew nothing about real strength. At first, they simply broke us down. Running, mud, hunger, sleepless nights. Then the real training began. Operating behind enemy lines, sabotage, camouflage, hand-to-hand combat. Weapons became an extension of my body. A knife, my second heart. I went through several war zones, where friends were killed faster than you could remember their names. Where mistakes were not forgiven. Where the only law was the law of the bullet. I learned to kill. But the scariest thing was, I learned to do it coldly. Without emotion. Without hesitation. Without regret. When you serve in reconnaissance, no one should remember you. You come, do your job, and disappear like a ghost. After 5 years in the army, I thought I would never return to normal life. But I did. When my contract ended, I left. To stay longer would mean becoming a machine. I had already seen it happen to others. I did not want to become like them. I returned to my hometown. My father was already old. My mother had fallen ill. I started helping him in the workshop, and soon I realized that working with wood was the only thing that truly calmed me. But I had no intention of working for someone else. I took out a loan, bought a piece of land, an old sawmill, and started my own business. I knew how to work with wood, but business was a new world for me. I learned on the go, made mistakes, lost money, but I never gave up. A couple of years later, I had a small company building houses and furniture. I worked only with natural wood, made everything by hand, none of that Chinese junk. People liked it. Orders grew. I built homes for others. I created comfort, warmth, protection. But at that time, I did not have a home of my own. Until I met her. Anna came into my life unexpectedly. Beautiful, flexible, full of life. She taught yoga, dance, she seemed light, weightless. I liked that I could not fully understand her. There was something hidden, something mysterious about her. We married quickly. I did not think I was making a mistake. I built a house for us, made furniture for her, took care of her. When our daughters were born, I thought I had everything. A wife, children, a home, a business. I thought life had given me a chance at peace. I thought that after all the years of war, blood, and pain, I had finally found something worth living for. I was a fool. I never thought I would end up in this situation. I had a family, a home, a business. I worked tirelessly, building my life brick by brick, just like the houses I created for others. Every morning, I woke up early, earlier than anyone else. I made breakfast for myself and the girls while Anna was still asleep. I loved watching them run around the house, laughing, demanding more pancakes. I left for work, checked construction sites, monitored orders. I did not have an office in the traditional sense. My office was where the scent of fresh wood lingered, where sawdust covered the floor, where the sound of tools never stopped. In the evening, I came home tired but satisfied. Anna worked too. Her yoga studio was thriving. Her classes were full. Sometimes she stayed late, saying she had extra sessions, private training, seminars. I never asked. I trusted her. We had spent many years together. We had beautiful daughters. We had a shared home, a shared life, a shared past. I knew she was beautiful, that men looked at her, but I was never jealous. We were happy. At least that was what I thought. The evening was just like hundreds of evenings before it. I came home from work, tired but content. Everything was going according to plan at the construction site. The clients were satisfied. The girls ran through the house, playing tag. Anna was cooking dinner, and the kitchen was filled with the scent of roasted meat and spices. A simple, peaceful life. I loved evenings like this. I loved the feeling of working hard all day and then coming home, knowing this is warmth, this is family, this is where I belong. We had dinner. I played with the girls, read them a bedtime story. Anna took them upstairs to put them to bed. I sat in the living room, drinking tea, enjoying a moment of silence. And then I heard a sound, a dull, barely noticeable noise, as if something had knocked over a bucket in the yard. I lifted my head, listening. Silence. But something inside me tensed. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked outside. Darkness. A slight wind rustled the trees. The street lamp cast a long shadow beyond the fence. Maybe a cat? Or the wind had shifted something. I turned, about to go back to my chair. And at that moment, the blow, sharp, heavy, with a sickening crunch. A flash exploded before my eyes. The world spun, and I fell forward before I could even understand what was happening. Darkness. When I regained consciousness, the first thing I felt was pain. My head throbbed. My temples pounded as if someone was driving nails into them. My body refused to obey. My hands were tied behind my back, my legs bound as well. The floor beneath me was hard and cold. It took me a moment to understand where I was. And then the smell hit me. Wood. Lacquer. The familiar scent of Anna's perfume mixed with something foreign, something crude, something unfamiliar. I was home, in my own living room, and I was not alone. I did not open my eyes, but I listened. Voices. Strangers. Arrogant. Loud. I did not move. I did not breathe. I just watched. Grimoff sat in my chair, lounging smugly, a glass of whiskey in his hand. The other bastards stood around him, grinning, exchanging glances like a pack of jackals. And then, her, Anna, my wife, the mother of my children, standing before them, her eyes lowered, her hands clenched into fists. Come on, baby, Grimoff smirked. Take it off. She trembled. Do not make me go get the girls. And then she began, like she had done this before. A fire ignited in my chest. I no longer felt the ropes binding my hands. I no longer felt my body. I was only rage. And that rage would not cool until the last of these animals drew his final, choking breath. But I waited, and that bastard kept going. Watch, cuckold. Grimoff's voice sliced through the air like a blade on glass. Watch closely. I want you to remember this moment for the rest of your life. He laughed. The others laughed with him. I tasted blood in my mouth. I did not know when I had bitten my tongue. Maybe the moment I wanted to scream, but forced myself to stay silent. Two of them held me, one gripping my shoulders, the other pressing a gun to my temple. But that was not what mattered. What mattered was that I could not look away, because they were making me watch. I could not hear my own thoughts. Only laughter. Only their filthy voices. I saw Grimoff pull out his phone and aim the camera. This is important. For history, so to speak, so you do not forget who owns you now, you little shit. Click. He started recording. I wanted to die. But even more than that, I want them to die. Grimoff sits in the chair, shaking his head. Meanwhile, those bastards continue having their fun with my wife. You thought you could screw me over, you bitch? He says, addressing Anna. But she does not look at me. She does not even try to say, I'm sorry. Grimoff takes a sip of whiskey and exhales in satisfaction. Things will be different now. He shifts his gaze to me. Starting tomorrow, cuckold, you will be sending me 50% of your profits. He smiles, revealing a gold tooth. And your dear wife will now personally service my boys once a week, maybe even more often. What? Did you not expect that your wife, instead of running a yoga studio, had actually opened a brothel? You know what else I will tell you? He takes another sip of my expensive whiskey and continues. Your whore has been fucking me for years, probably 5 by now. But you would have lived in ignorance if your wife had not turned out to be a rat and decided that just because she spreads her legs for me, she does not need to share the profits. And that is something I do not forgive. I hear someone sobbing. Anna? No, it is me. Because they have broken me. But they have forgotten one thing. I know how to put myself back together. And when that happens, I will break them. Starting tomorrow, your life will never be the same, Carpenter. Grimoff exhales smoke in my face, smirks, then rises from the chair and strolls through my home as if he owns it. His men continue laughing. They put on their jackets, grab whiskey bottles from the table. One of them pulls out a stack of cash and slaps it down in front of Anna. Your first paycheck, bitch. She says nothing. She just stands there unmoving. I no longer feel pain. I no longer feel human. I am an animal, trapped in a cage. But even an animal has its limits. Grimoff leans closer to me. His eyes lock onto mine. He knows. He sees the inferno of hatred burning inside me. And he likes it. Do you know why you're still alive, you little shit? He asks, lighting another cigarette. I say nothing, but he waits for an answer. And I give him one. Why? Grimoff smiles, takes a drag, then exhales smoke into my face. Because I wanted it that way. I clench my fist behind my back. The ropes dig into my skin, but I do not care. He savors the moment. Starting tomorrow, I am putting my own man in your company, he continues. He will monitor the accounting, the cash flow, every transaction. He pats my cheek like I am some obedient dog. Every deal you make now goes through me. I do not breathe. I just stare at him. You work for me now. Understood, Carpenter? He straightens, running his fingers along his chin as if deep in thought. Although, his eyes shift back to Anna. She does not even lift her head. You have already given me everything. He steps toward the door, gesturing to his men. Consider this moment the end of your life. Because I own it now. The door swings open. I hear the heavy boots of those bastards as they leave my home. One of them turns back and spits on the threshold. See you soon, Carpenter. The door slams shut. Silence fills the house. I hear only her breathing. Anna does not move. I look at her, and in that moment I die, but someone else is born. I refuse to be a victim. I refuse to be broken. And when I rise, I will make their lives a living hell. I hear the door click shut. Silence. Deafening, oppressive, heavier than pain, than fear, than the rage tearing me apart from the inside. And then I feel her hands. Warm. Trembling. She touches me. She unties my wrists. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She whispers through her tears. I do not move. I do not hear her words. I do not feel her hands, because everything inside me is already dead. When the last ropes fall to the floor, I suddenly spring to my feet. She does not have time to recoil. I look straight into her eyes. Her face is contorted with fear, but I do not care. I spit in her face. She freezes. Her lips tremble. Shock fills her eyes, but I no longer feel pain. I no longer feel anything. I lean toward her, and my words cut through the air like a knife against skin. You have 10 minutes. I speak quietly, almost in a whisper. 10 minutes to tell me everything. I take a step forward, forcing her into a corner. She shrinks back, like a trapped animal. But I am the beast in this room, or I will kill you right here. She gasps for air, choking on her own sobs. Speak. I see her breaking. She has nowhere left to run. The truth slips from her lips, and what she says will make me even more dangerous than I was before. She trembles. Her lips part, but no words come out. I look straight into her eyes, and in that moment, she realizes there is no salvation for her anymore. Speak. She swallows hard, takes a sharp breath, and I see her give in. She breaks, but I do not care. 5 years. Her voice is quiet, fractured. For 5 years, I have been sleeping with Grimoff. I do not move, but something inside me tears apart. I say nothing. I just wait. At first, she gasps for breath. It was just, I do not know. She lowers her eyes, but I do not let her retreat into herself. I take another step forward, trapping her even deeper in the corner. Look at me, bitch. She flinches. She raises her gaze, and in her eyes, I see no remorse. Only fear. Fear for herself. She continues. I thought it was a game, she whispers. That it was just sex, without consequences. She falls silent. But I need everything. Keep going. She struggles with the words. And then, I realize I can make money from it. I feel my fingers curl into fists. She averts her eyes but keeps talking. My studio. Her voice trembles. It is not just a yoga studio. She looks at me, and finally, for the first time, I see something that resembles shame in her eyes. It is a brothel. Time stops. I do not breathe. I do not feel my body. I just stare at her. You. I do not recognize my own voice. It is hollow, foreign, ice cold. You brought this filth into my home? She does not answer. But I do not need her to. I already know the truth. She is scum. Just like them. Grimoff, did he know? My voice is hoarse, full of hatred. She nods. Yes, but what? I snap. I cannot take this anymore. The lies. The deception. The voice that once felt warm and familiar. But I did not know he was controlling us too. I freeze. She gasps for air, trying to keep speaking. I thought I had everything under control. You thought. I nearly smash my fist into the wall. But I need to hear everything to the end. Explain. She lowers her head. The clients, they were not just random men off the street. Her voice is barely audible. Who? I ask very quietly. The mayor. She sobs. The sheriff. I feel my world collapse around me. They all knew. All this time, I have been living in a goddamn snake pit without even realizing it. And how did Grimoff find out? I growl. She covers her face with her hands. They were drinking. Her voice is barely a whisper. And the mayor said, she looks me in the eyes, and I see pure terror. The mayor let it slip. My lips are dry as sandpaper. What did he say? Anna chokes on her words. That his mistress has the best whores in town. Silence. Absolute silence. I stop breathing. I stop existing. Grimoff heard it. Grimoff realized he had been played. Grimoff came to collect what was his. And I paid a price for it. I remained standing, motionless, frozen mute. Anna falls to her knees, sobbing, trying to touch me. I pull away. I can no longer feel her touch. I'm sorry, she whispers. I say nothing. I stood before her, breathing heavily. Not from exhaustion, not from pain, but from the overwhelming hatred that now seemed to be the only thing keeping me standing. The events of the past hours raced through my mind at a terrifying speed, and with each passing moment, the realization of what had happened turned into a monstrous ball of fire, tearing me apart from the inside. Anna was still on her knees, her head bowed, her shoulders shaking with sobs, but I did not care. I no longer saw the woman who was my wife. I no longer saw the mother of my children. I no longer saw the person I had trusted my entire life with. All I saw was a cowardly, pathetic creature who had willingly brought into my home the very people who had trampled on my honor, my dignity, my life. So 5 years. I spoke slowly, as if tasting each word, feeling how the icy rage inside me boiled, melting me into something entirely different. 5 years, you've been fucking that bastard while I broke my back at work to make sure you and the girls had everything you needed. 5 years you wore the mask of a loving wife. But the moment you stepped outside, you turned into a common whore? She flinched, curled up even smaller, but she said nothing, just choked on another sob, realizing that nothing she said now mattered anymore because I no longer believed a single word from her lips. And even that was not enough for you. I continued, stepping forward, slowly, coldly, hammering every syllable of my contempt in her mind so she could feel how each sound cut into her like shards of broken glass. You decided you could profit from it. You opened a brothel. You let filth into my home. You allowed your whore friends to walk through my house, and I knew nothing. I watched her gasp for air, trying to speak, trying to come up with some kind of explanation, but she had no excuses. She understood that in this hell she had created, there was no and could never be forgiveness. But even that was not enough for you. I went on, no longer holding back my voice or my emotions, feeling as if I was being torn apart from the inside by the realization that I had lived with this woman, raised children with her, believed we had a family. While all this time, she had been betraying me, smiling at me in the morning, kissing me goodnight, telling me she loved me. You thought you could play Grimmhoff? You, bitch, actually believed you could play these games, deceive the bastard who controls the entire city, and walk away unscathed? She squeezed her eyes shut, lowered her head, and in that moment, I knew she finally realized the full depth of her mistake. Not because she felt sorry for me, not because she suddenly felt guilt, but because now she understood her story was over. You doomed us all, I said slowly, coldly, taking another step forward, looming over her while she kept trembling like a pathetic, cornered animal that once thought itself a predator. You opened the door to these bastards with your own hands. You put our children in danger. You gave Grimmhoff a reason. You pushed him to come here, to tie me up, to humiliate me, to crush me, to destroy everything I had spent my entire life building. She lifted her tear-streaked eyes to me, filled with horror and something else, a hopeless, desperate attempt to fix everything. But I did not care. And the worst part, I leaned in close so she could feel every word, so they could sink into her like knives, carving in her mind just as deeply as her betrayal had carved into mine. You did not do this because you were forced. Not because you had no way out. Not because you were pressured. You did it because you liked it. She choked, shook her head, trying to deny it. But I saw the truth. She had enjoyed it. She had reveled in the power, the money, the secret meetings, the risk. She took pleasure in it while I toiled, while I lived for her and our children. I no longer saw a person in her, and she understood that. I straightened up, stepped around her, picked up the knife one of those bastards had dropped, and slowly ran my finger along its blade. What are you going to do? She whispered, her voice hoarse, pitiful. She did not recognize me anymore, because the man standing before her was no longer the husband she had deceived, lied to, and betrayed. I lifted my eyes to her. First, I took a deep breath, feeling my rage turn to ice, feeling my thoughts align with perfect clarity, each detail falling into place, forming a plan. First, I will hide the girls. She let out a sob. Her shoulders trembled. Then, I will rip this rot from my life by the roots. She froze, stopped breathing, and I saw that she understood. And after that, I took a step toward her, and she, forgetting her tears, instinctively backed away, as if she had finally realized that her fate was already sealed. I will come for you. I would let her go for now. I would let her breathe, but not for long. And she knew it. I stood before Anna, gripping the knife, feeling the weight of the metal strangely calm and focus me, making my thoughts cold, calculating. Inside, there was no more pain, no more doubt, nothing but a single purpose: to save my children. Nothing else mattered anymore. I took a step back, feeling the icy, boundless rage boiling in my chest, but for now I controlled it. It could not control me. It was a tool, like the knife in my hand, like the hands I used to build houses, like the hammer I used to drive nails. Now this rage would be my strength. Anna did not move. She stood across from me, still trembling, still trying to grasp what had just happened. But I no longer cared. I walked past her without a glance, climbed the stairs to where the girls were sleeping. Their bedroom door was slightly open. I looked inside and saw them. Two small figures curled up under their blankets, their breathing steady, peaceful. They had no idea what had just taken place downstairs. I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling a tightness in my throat. I would not let them find out. I would not let this nightmare touch their lives. Silent, without a sound, I approached their beds, leaned down, and ran my hand over their hair, memorizing their scent, their warmth, their innocence, something I was now bound to protect at any cost. "Daddy?" A soft voice came from under the blanket, and I saw Katia, the eldest, open her eyes and look at me sleepily. I forced myself to smile. "Shoo, sweetheart," I whispered, kneeling beside her, wrapping my arms around her. "We need to go to Grandma's, okay? Right now." She nodded sleepily, not asking questions. She trusted me. I leaned over to the second bed, gently woke up the younger one, Nastia. She only rubbed her eyes, mumbled something incoherent, but did not protest, just reached for me. I lifted her into my arms, stood up, gestured for Katia to follow, and we left the room. Anna was standing in the hallway. I looked at her, and she flinched, as if my gaze was worse than a blow. "Where are you taking them?" Her voice trembled, but there was no real fear for the children in it, only fear for herself. "Away from you," I replied coldly, walking past her. She reached out her hand as if to stop me, but I crushed her hope with a single look. "If you try to stop me, I will kill you right here." She froze, as if turning to stone, and I no longer saw her, because she no longer existed in my life. I stepped outside without looking back, put the girls in the car, and checked to make sure I had money, documents, everything we needed. The drive to my mother's house was only 2 hours, but right now, it felt like an endless stretch of road I needed to cross as fast as possible. I started the engine, pulled out of the driveway, glanced once more in the rearview mirror, and saw the house I had built with my own hands, the house that no longer belonged to me. I saw the woman standing at the window, watching us, already knowing that it was over. I pressed the gas. I did not care. At that moment, my old life died. Once I had driven far enough from the city, with only an empty road and dense forest around me, I finally allowed myself to exhale. I looked at the back seat, where my daughters, unaware of anything, were already dozing, wrapped in each other's arms. Their small faces were peaceful, serene. They did not know that I had just saved their lives, that only hours ago, a mortal threat had been hanging over them. My gaze shifted to the phone lying next to me, and my fingers clenched. I knew what I had to do. I knew who to call. I opened my contacts and found the number, the one I had not dialed in years because I believed I would never need it again. But tonight had proven that old skills were once again necessary. I pressed call. The ringing lasted an eternity before a low, steady voice finally answered. "What the hell are you calling me for at this hour?" I closed my eyes, feeling something inside me click, feeling myself become the man I used to be. "I need your help, Andre." Silence on the other end, but I knew he was already packing his things. "Where do I go?" "Do not come near my house. It is over there. We meet at the old warehouse outside the city." "This serious?" I looked in the rearview mirror, saw my sleeping children, and felt rage seep into every cell of my body. Much worse. I will be there in an hour. Click. Call ended. Andre was the one who had gone through all the filth of war with me. The one I trusted with my life as much as he trusted me with his. He was cold-blooded, calculating, and knew how to kill. He never asked unnecessary questions, because he knew that if I was calling after so many years of silence, it meant things were truly serious. I focused back on the road, turned onto a dirt path, and headed toward the place where my new path would begin. I drove in silence, my eyes fixed on the road ahead, but my mind was elsewhere. Every second of this night was carving itself into my memory, hammering into my consciousness like a nail. This could not be forgiven, could not be forgotten, could not be left unanswered. The car was quiet, only the steady breathing of my daughters reminding me that I was still alive, that I still meant something, that I had something to lose. But I would lose nothing ever again. 40 minutes later, I turned onto the dirt road leading to the old warehouse. Only a select few knew this place. No cameras, no unwanted eyes, just damp air, concrete, and the cold of the night. I killed the engine, stepped out of the car, and took a deep breath. 5 minutes later, headlights appeared down the road. Andre had arrived. A dark SUV pulled up without a sound, but I knew the driver inside had already assessed the situation, already had a hand on his weapon, already prepared to shoot if something went wrong. The door opened, and out stepped a man I had not seen in over 10 years. Andre was older, but nothing about him had changed. The same predatory gaze, the same cold eyes, devoid of doubt, regret, or mercy. The same confident, heavy stride of a man who knew how to kill and how to stay alive. He stopped 3 meters away, hands in his pockets, looking me up and down before exhaling and smirking. "Well, you look like shit, brother." I did not smile. "Thanks for coming. I always show up when one of us calls." He glanced toward the car, his gaze lingering on the back seat where the girls slept, then shifted back to me. "So, it is completely fucked, huh?" "Yes." "Who?" I clenched my fists, feeling my nails dig into my palms, using the pain to keep control. "Grimov." Andre was silent for a moment, then slowly nodded, as if everything had just fallen into place. "I see. So, Grimov, which means his whole pack, which means an entire city of corrupt cops and officials." I did not answer. He had already figured it out himself. "And what do you want to do?" I looked him straight in the eyes. "Destroy them all." He let out a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. Only understanding. Only acceptance of reality. Only the realization that there was no way back. "Well, what the hell are we standing around for? Let's start planning." We sat in the old warehouse, illuminated only by a dim light bulb hanging from the ceiling. The air smelled of dampness, metal, and dust. It was a familiar scent, one that took me back to a time when life was simpler, when Andre and I knew our enemy by face, knew our objective, knew exactly what needed to be done. Now, everything was different. The enemy wore expensive suits, spoke in front of cameras, smiled from billboards, and shook hands with powerful people. He did not hide in filthy basements, because he was the one running the city. "We start with the mayor," I said, watching Andre as he loaded bullets into a magazine. He glanced up at me and smirked. "This bastard, I take it, is something worse than just another corrupt official?" I nodded, clenching my fists. "He is not just an official. He is the embodiment of evil." Andre raised an eyebrow, but stayed silent. I took a deep breath, recalling everything Anna had told me. The mayor of the city, Artyom Vlasov, was not just a bribed rat stuffing his pockets. He personally used the services of Anna's brothel, protected Grimov, and worst of all, he was a pedophile. Anna had told me that for his special parties, he ordered underage girls, trafficked to him by Grimov's criminal network. This bastard was not just corrupt. He was the living embodiment of human filth. And I could not let him live. "This son of a bitch dies first," I said, feeling icy hatred boil inside me. Andre nodded. "I assume you want to make it loud?" I shook my head. "No. We will make sure everyone sees it, but no one knows who did it." Andre smirked, snapped the slide of his pistol into place, and looked at me with the same gaze I remembered from the war. Well, brother, let's make a plan. The plan was simple. There would be no loud statements, no messages left behind, no dramatic execution. It had to look like an accident, an unfortunate tragedy that would come for the mayor in his own home, surrounded by his comfort and luxury. Andre and I knew that the best killer was fire. Fire left no evidence. It consumed everything. It erased tracks, turning flesh to ash and walls to ruins. This city had lived in darkness for too long. Tonight, we would light the first spark. We watched the mayor for 2 days. Andre used old connections to track security schedules, cameras, and routines. I sat in my car outside his mansion, memorizing how he came home, how the light in his office turned on, how his guards left for the night, leaving him vulnerable. That bastard thought he was untouchable. But we knew that every man is vulnerable if you know where to strike. On the third night, we came for him. We moved without a sound. I climbed over the fence, landing softly on the damp evening grass. Andre followed, gliding through the shadows. There were no guards. Vlasov trusted his surveillance system. But I did not care about cameras. The alarm system was outdated, not the latest model. Andre disabled it in under a minute. We entered the house. Somewhere upstairs, music was playing. The mayor sat in his office on the second floor, reclining in his chair, a glass of expensive whiskey in one hand, a phone in the other, scrolling through pictures of yet another young girl. Rage coiled in my stomach. Andre moved first, silent as a ghost. In one swift motion, he pressed his gun to the back of the mayor's head. "Good evening, you piece of shit." Vlasov jerked, his body tensing, fingers spasming open and dropping the glass. But before he could scream, I was next to him, slamming my fist into his face. He toppled over with the chair, his head hitting the marble floor with a dull thud. "W," he rasped, but I did not let him finish. I pressed my boot against his chest, squeezing his throat just enough for him to feel pain but still breathe. "Do you know why you're going to die?" I asked, leaning closer. His eyes darted around, and for a moment, I almost pitied him for not understanding who I was. But it did not matter. I let him see my face, and in that moment, he knew. "No, please." He choked out the words, but I pressed harder. "You have lived too long, bastard." I lifted my gaze to Andre, who was already splashing gasoline across the carpet, the walls, the furniture. "Make it slow." I stepped back, watching as Andre sliced through the tendons in the mayor's legs. Vlasov screamed, but we had long since crossed the line of mercy. We had heard screams like this before, and we knew he deserved every second of this pain. I picked up the gas canister, slowly pouring gasoline over his hands, his face, his chest. Gromov had taught this city that fear was power. Tonight, we would teach it a different truth. Fear comes for everyone. When every inch of the house reeked of death, when gasoline had soaked the floors, the curtains, the silk-covered furniture, I pulled out my lighter. Andre watched me, saying nothing. I leaned down to Vlasov, staring into his terror-filled eyes one last time. "Get used to the fire, you bastard. It will be everywhere in hell." I clicked the lighter and threw it on his chest. The fire flared up instantly. It enveloped the mayor's body greedily, hungrily, as if it knew exactly who it was burning. We left the house, leaving behind a blazing hell. The flames reached into the night sky, filling the air with the scent of burning flesh and smoke. I watched as the first piece of Gromov's empire crumbled. I watched as hell claimed one of those who deserved it more than anyone. And I knew this was just the beginning. Today, the first rat was killed. Tomorrow, I would come for the rest. The next morning, I sat in a cheap motel outside the city, drinking bitter, overbrewed coffee and watching the news while the girls were still sleeping in the next room. The TV screen showed the host screaming, her face pale and frightened. She spoke quickly, excitedly, and behind her, images of the fire scene flashed. Last night, the mayor of the city, Artem Vlasov, tragically died in his home. Preliminary reports suggest the cause of the fire was an electrical short circuit. However, the police are considering all possibilities, including arson. The camera switched to the charred remains, where embers still smoldered. Firefighters and forensic specialists were digging through the rubble, and there were remnants of what had once been the mayor. I took a sip of coffee, keeping my eyes fixed on the screen. You burned like a rat in a hole. No one mentioned what he was really like. Not a word about his entertainments, his crimes, or the filth he had smeared across this city. Just hypocritical condolences, just attempts to find the guilty, just foolish speculations from the commentators. But I knew there were people who knew the truth. The host finished her speech, and the camera switched to the second person I had been waiting to see. Alexei Grimov. He stood before the cameras, in an expensive suit, with a carefully rehearsed look of grief on his face, but there was rage in his eyes. "We've lost a wonderful person," he said, squeezing a pair of expensive watches in his hands, as if they could stop him from having an emotional outburst. Artem wasn't just the mayor. He was my friend, a man who loved this city and worked for its prosperity. I am sure the police will do everything they can to get to the bottom of this tragedy. I smirked, continuing to watch him. Grimov was a good actor, but I knew what was going on inside of him. He was furious. He understood that this was no accident. He couldn't prove anything, but he knew that someone had made the first move. I could feel his fingers clenching into fists off camera, already planning, already plotting to find the ones who dared cross him. But he wouldn't find me. He didn't even know who to look for. I turned off the TV, put the empty cup on the table, and looked at my phone, where a message from Andre had already popped up. "Your sheriff buddy is in his office. They say he's nervous." I smirked. He should be nervous. If the mayor burned alive, the sheriff was destined to drown in his own blood. These bastards thought they could get away with everything. They thought power would protect them, that they could exploit the system, rape it, steal, destroy lives, and no one would come after them. But I came. And the next step in this war is to rid the city of the main corrupt rat. After the mayor burned in his own home, the city was gripped by panic. Politicians, officials, businessmen who thought they were untouchable now looked over their shoulders, fearing that the next fire would ignite beneath their feet. But one person panicked more than anyone. Sheriff Oleg Sazonov, the main rat in uniform. If the mayor was the face of the city's filth, then the sheriff was the hand that spread it through the streets. He protected brothels, knew about drug shipments, sold weapons to criminals, and covered up everything Grimov did. And the most disgusting part, he personally used the girls Grimov brought to special parties. This man deserved nothing but a brutal death. I sat in the car, parked across the street from the police building, watching the entrance carefully. The whole day had been chaotic, with forensic experts and investigators arriving. The news of the mayor's death shaking the city. The sheriff sat in his office, thinking the walls of that building would save him. But today, the walls would save no one. Today, the city would see that a new power had arrived. "Are you sure you're ready?" Andre's voice pulled me from my thoughts. I turned my head. He was sitting in the passenger seat, checking the rifle resting on his knees. "I've been ready since those bastards broke into my house." He grunted, nodded, and chambered around. "Then let's go make history." When the sun began to set, when the streets filled with traffic, when the evening bustle distracted people, we got out of the car and moved toward the building. We were wearing masks, black clothing, with weapons hidden under our jackets. They weren't expecting an attack. No one expected anyone to dare open fire on the police. But we weren't criminals. We were soldiers. And when we entered the precinct, we began the purge. The first patrolman didn't even manage to draw his pistol. A bullet entered his head, spraying his brains on the wall. The second rushed for his weapon, but Andre emptied a clip into him, tearing apart his chest, sending him crashing onto the desk, which flipped over under his weight. Screams. The smell of blood. We moved forward methodically, calmly, destroying everything in our path. I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel pity. I felt only rage. Grimov thought the city belonged to him. But we were rewriting the rules of the game. When we burst into Sazonov's office, he was sitting in his chair, trembling, holding onto his phone, trying to call for help, but it was too late. I knocked the phone from his hands, grabbed him by the hair, and slammed his face into the desk. "What's up, Rat? Not expecting guests?" He gasped, blood pouring from his broken nose, his eyes darting back and forth, filled with pure, unbounded animal desperation. "Guys, W8, let's make a deal." I laughed in his face. "You already made a deal, bastard. With Grimov. With the mayor. with the pedophiles and drug dealers. You thought power had no price? I pressed the barrel against his forehead, feeling his body shake. Today, your power is nullified. Please. His voice was pitiful, trembling. He tried to say something, but I didn't care. I pulled the trigger. The shot shattered his head, splattering blood and gray matter on the walls. Andre was already planting explosives. We worked quickly, without pause, without panic. We knew what to do. When we left, sirens were already wailing in the streets. But it was too late. We left hell behind. 15 minutes after we disappeared, the precinct exploded. Plumes of black smoke shot into the sky. Debris scattered across the street. Cars caught fire, and panic erupted on the news. The city now knew the mayor wasn't the last. Grimoff was watching the news, and I knew he understood. This was no longer just an accident. It was war, and I was coming for him. Deep in the city, behind the massive walls of a nightclub that was not just a place for entertainment, but his headquarters, his fortress, Grimoff sat in a leather chair, gritting his teeth so hard that the muscles in his jaw twitched. In front of him, on a large screen, the news was playing. The host, barely concealing her fear, was reporting on the events of the past night. Today, a major terrorist attack took place in the city center. Unknown criminals broke into the police precinct, opened fire on officers, and killed Sheriff Oleg Sazonov. According to sources, the killers used automatic weapons, acted professionally, and were apparently well prepared. Later, the police building was blown up, causing significant damage. The city authorities have declared a state of emergency, and the police have launched a large-scale operation to find the criminals. Click. The screen went black. A deathly silence hung in the room. Behind Grimoff, 5 of his men stood. Guards. Soldiers. The ones who had always been there. But even they didn't dare speak first. They felt the tension. They saw how the jaw of their boss clenched, how his fingers tightened and loosened on the armrests of his chair, how his chest rose from deep, controlled breathing. He was furious, but this anger didn't burst out like it would with regular people. This anger was cold, lethal, venomous. Who the fuck did this? His voice was dull, oppressive, slow. No one answered. Grimoff abruptly stood up, grabbed a glass from the table, and hurled it at the wall. A dull thud, shattering glass. Everyone flinched. He turned toward them, his gaze burning with pure, unrestrained fury. I'm asking who the fuck did this? One of his men, a lanky guy with a short scar on his cheek, cleared his throat, pulled out his phone, scrolled through something in his contacts, and muttered, "Boss, we only have rumors." Grimoff approached him, his gaze boring into the subordinate like a knife. I'm not interested in rumors. I want facts. The guy swallowed. They say it was that carpenter. A silence fell in the room. Grimoff didn't move. That carpenter, Anna's husband, the very cuckold they had tied up in his own home, humiliated, crushed, destroyed. The one he should have finished off right away. Grimoff exhaled slowly. Then suddenly, he pulled a pistol from his waistband and shot the man in the forehead. A muffled pop. The body fell to the floor. Everyone else froze, motionless, breathless. Grimoff lowered the gun. His hands didn't even shake. I don't tolerate stupid bastards bringing me rumors instead of information, he said calmly, wiping the silencer on his pants. He shifted his gaze to the others. Now listen carefully. We will find out where he is. We will find him, his kids, his friend. And I will erase them from the face of the earth so that no one will even remember they existed. We move right now. He turned around and left the room, his men rushing to carry out the orders. The air still smelled of gunpowder. I knew Grimoff wouldn't wait. I knew he would send his dogs after me, that he wouldn't rest until he saw my head on a table. But I wasn't going to hide. I was waiting for them. I invited them into my world, to my sawmill, where I made things that outlived people, where I worked with my hands, creating comfort and strength. Today, I wasn't working with wood. Today, people would fall under my saws. Andre helped me set the trap. We knew Grimoff wouldn't come himself. He valued his own skin too much. He'd send a lackey, experienced, armed, ruthless. They thought it would be an easy job, but they came to my house. And in my house, I set the rules. I turned off the cameras on the sawmill grounds, leaving only one to see when they would arrive. I left the lights on in only one workshop where the bandsaws, circular saws, and planers were. I turned on the loud generator to drown out any screams. I grabbed knives, chains, and axe, and I waited. I saw them on the camera screen. 5 of them, 3 of those bastards who had been having fun with my wife in my house. Black jackets, gloves, rifles, the confident walk of those who no longer doubt their victory. They entered, lighting the place with flashlights, expecting to see me with my hands up. But I wasn't the victim. I was the predator. The first one didn't even hear me approach from behind. I raised the knife and drove it into the base of his skull, feeling the bone crunch, feeling his body instantly slacken. His flashlight fell to the floor, illuminating the blood-soaked ground. 4 remained. I smirked. Did you come to die? Then I'll gladly accommodate you. They started shooting, but it was too late. I knew every hidden corner, every passage, every shadow. I moved quickly, silently, like a ghost. The second man didn't even have time to realize what happened when I knocked him off his feet, smashing his face into the workbench, and cleaved an axe into his skull. His skull cracked like a rotten board. 3 left, but now they were afraid. I heard their breathing, heard one of them curse, realizing they'd made a mistake. I reveled in that fear. I stepped out of the shadows, letting them see me. Out of ammo, one rushed at me with a knife. But I ducked under his strike, spun around, knocked the knife out his hand, and grabbed him by the throat. With force, I dragged him to the bandsaw. He screamed, he kicked, but my hands were stronger than his pathetic attempts to break free. His stomach slammed into the edge of the machine, and he gasped in pain as I pressed his head against the moving blade. What was your last order? I whispered in his ear, feeling his sweat drip onto my fingers. He choked on fear. That's not the answer. I pressed. The bandsaw screeched as it cut into his body, tearing through skin, muscle, and bone. He screamed so loud that even the generator couldn't drown out his cry. But that scream froze the other 2. They were no longer hunters. They were prey. One dropped to his knees, clasped his hands, trying to beg for mercy. Please, no. I was just following orders. I looked at him, then at the second, who was slowly backing away, trembling so badly that a pistol magazine fell from his hands. You were following orders? I asked with a smirk. He nodded, tears streaming down his cheeks. I leaned in, grabbed his hair, and slammed his face into the edge of the circular saw. And do you know who else followed orders? He gasped, choking on his own blood. Those who burned people alive in concentration camps. I switched on the circular saw and lowered him onto the table. He screamed as the blade began to tear open his stomach. Please. God, no. I didn't stop. He was the last. I watched as the saw sliced into him, his body twitching in spasms, his screams turning into gurgling gasps. When it was over, the sawmill workshop was drenched in blood. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, savoring the silence. They were dead, but Grimoff was still alive. The sawmill was soaked in blood, bodies lay in disarray, and the air still carried the smell of oil, wood, and fresh death. But I didn't care. I stood, breathing heavily, gripping the blood-stained axe, feeling my wild heartbeat slow. And then the phone rang. I looked at the screen. Andre. I pressed the call button and brought the receiver to my ear, expecting to hear his dry voice with its usual hint of sarcasm. But there was no sarcasm on the other end. There was a cold, angry voice, the voice of a man who knew things were taking a serious turn. Brother, we have a problem. I tightened my grip on the phone. What? Grimoff is at your wife's. For a moment, the world narrowed to a single point. I felt my fingers curl into fists, my heart thud again, and my body, despite the exhaustion, come into full combat readiness. What the hell is he doing there? I growled, already moving toward the exit, not asking, not clarifying. I think he realized his men are gone, and he came for answers. I didn't hesitate. I jumped into the car, started the engine with a single yank, slammed the gas so hard the tires screeched, leaving black marks on the asphalt. Andre was already on his way, but I couldn't wait. If Grimoff had gone to her, it meant he was looking for me. I pressed the gas pedal harder, the car roared, gaining speed, the streets flashing by in blurred patches of light. Gromov didn't know I was already coming after him, and he still didn't realize what mistake he'd made. Today, we would end this once and for all. I parked the car around the corner of the next street, killed the engine, and got out without slamming the door. Everything inside was calm. Not because I didn't feel anger. There was too much of it for it to boil over. It froze, becoming cold, concentrated, precise. I moved silently, through the alleys, like in the old days when we were taught to be shadows in reconnaissance. My house. Once it had been my fortress. Now it was the enemy's lair. I peered through the windows. Light. Shadows. Movement. Gromov was there. I crouched by the fence, pulled out my gun, took a deep breath, allowing myself to collect my thoughts. And then I heard his voice. Your cuckold thinks he's Rambo, huh? I froze. My heart clenched into an icy lump. His voice spread through the house like poison, penetrating every corner, every crack, every wall I had built with my own hands. Did he think he could handle me? I slowly stood up, moving closer to the window, peeking inside. Gromov was sitting on the couch, sprawled out like the owner. He was relaxed, drunk, smug. Anna was next to him. She wasn't tied up, wasn't beaten, wasn't scared. She sat next to him in her bathrobe, her eyes cast downward. She had already resigned herself. And then Gromov laughed, pulled her by the waist, and drew her closer. I think my guys have already buried your husband at his own sawmill. Mistake, you bastard. I took a deep breath. A moment. Silence. I burst in. I kicked the door down, stormed inside, gun already in hand, the first shot straight into the throat of the guard at the door. Gromov didn't even have time to realize what was happening. I didn't give him a chance. The second shot shattered the shoulder of the second bastard reaching for his weapon. Blood soaked the walls, the furniture, my face, and hands. Bastard, Gromov yelled, trying to get up, but I was already there. I hit him in the face with the butt of my gun. His head snapped back, blood pouring from his busted lip, and he fell to the floor, choking on curses. Anna screamed. I turned toward her. She looked at me like I was a ghost, like a monster she had created. You're alive. Her voice weak, broken. I looked at her with no emotion. Too bad that surprises you. She looked at the bloodied bodies in the room, then back at me. Please don't. You're saying that to the wrong person. I wasn't going to kill her quickly. I had something better in mind. Gromov writhed on the floor, trying to crawl away. I turned to him, saw the fear in his eyes. Well, what now, bastard? I said, leaning in closer. You won't kill me, he rasped, spitting out blood. I smirked. You're right. I grabbed him by the hair, dragged him across the living room, past Anna, who covered her mouth with her hands in horror. We reached the kitchen. Gromov was wheezing, twisting, his legs buckling, but I dragged him forward, giving him no chance, no choice, no escape. He tried to resist, his hands gripping the furniture, door frames, the floor, but I slammed my elbow into his spine, draining his last strength. He collapsed to his knees, his chest rising and falling in ragged breaths, coughing, choking on blood, his eyes darting around the kitchen looking for an exit. There was no exit. Anna stood by the wall, curled into a ball, her lips trembling, but she wasn't crying, wasn't screaming, wasn't begging. She was just waiting. I looked at her, and in her eyes, there was no regret, no remorse. Only fear. It was too late. I picked up the knife from the table. Its blade glinted under the light, and seeing it, Gromov began to jerk, moving his lips like a fish stranded on the shore. Wait, we can make a deal. I leaned in close, almost touching his ear with my lips. No, we can't. I drove the knife into his neck, slowly, deeply, without hurry. He let out a gurgling choke. His eyes rolled back. Blood gushed onto the floor, soaking his clothes, my hand, the walls. He desperately grabbed my shoulder, his fingers weakening. I yanked the blade to the side, tearing the artery, and Gromov started to convulse. He died slowly, in agony, and I watched as that bastard left this world, knowing he had lost. He gasped a few more seconds before going silent forever. I looked at his lifeless body, feeling nothing, and then I turned to Anna. She was pale, terror in her eyes, her hands trembling, but she didn't move. I took a step forward. She backed away. You shouldn't. Her voice shook, but even now, she didn't apologize. I didn't respond. I simply shoved the knife into her stomach. She gasped for air. Her body froze for a moment. Then she bent over, clutching the knife's handle. I watched as her eyes filled with pain, how her lips trembled, how she gasped, struggling to breathe. 5 years of lies. I twisted the knife inside, feeling the blade tear through her insides. She groaned, choking on blood, her hands weakening. I pulled the knife out. She collapsed to the floor, writhing in pain. I crouched down next to her, looking her straight in the eyes. I could have let you live. She looked at me with her last hope, gasping for air. I pressed my palm against her throat and began to squeeze slowly. She tried to fight, but she no longer had the strength. I felt her heartbeat growing weaker. And finally, silence. I released her. Her head fell limply to the floor. She was no longer breathing. I sat among the 2 corpses, covered in their blood, breathing heavily, head lowered. Then the door slammed. Damn, I'm late for the fun part. I raised my head and saw Andre standing in the doorway, a gun in his hand and a smirk on his face. He took in the bloody chaos, clicked his tongue, and shook his head. Man, you really made a slaughterhouse, huh? I slowly got up, tossed the knife aside, wiped my bloody hands on my t-shirt, and looked at him. It's over. Andre smirked, lit a cigarette, took a deep drag, and exhaled the smoke. For them, yes. And for you? I looked at the burning house, where my old life had died, and I felt emptiness. For me, it's just beginning. 3 months passed. The city that had once been my home no longer existed for me. Everything there had burned along with the past, along with the people I'd buried with my own hands. Now I had a different life. I didn't know if it could be called peace, but one thing I knew for sure, my girls were safe. I moved to a small town by the lake, among the same working people as me, where there were no corrupt mayors, bastards in uniforms, or criminal kings. I bought a small plot, built a house on it, with my own hands, without any help, without other people's money. I was working with wood again like I used to, but now not for others, but for myself and my children. I built simple, reliable furniture, installed plumbing, took the girls to school, woke up in the mornings and made them breakfast, and no one could take that away from me anymore. I didn't seek new acquaintances, didn't try to make friends, didn't tell the neighbors about myself. Here, I was just a woodworker, a father of 2 girls, a man who wanted to live in peace. But the shadow of the past still hung over me. Katia, the older one, almost never asked. She understood that something terrible had happened. She saw how we left that night, how I looked at her in the rearview mirror, how my hands trembled on the steering wheel. But she didn't ask. She just hugged me before bed, just said, "I love you, Daddy," just pretended everything was fine. Nastia, the younger one, didn't yet fully realize that we had left our old life behind forever. She laughed, ran around, built sandcastles by the lake, lived in the present. And I envied her. Andre didn't go far. He found himself a house nearby, opened a car repair shop, pretending to be a simple mechanic who didn't give a damn about anything. But we both knew that if one day someone tried to take this peace from us, it would vanish as quickly as it came. "So what now, bro?" he asked one evening as we sat on the porch of my house, sipping beer. I looked at the lake while my girls were splashing in the water, laughing, carefree, happy. Now I just live. Andre smirked, took a sip, looked at the horizon, and nodded. Well, fuck it. We fell silent. For the first time in a long while, the silence wasn't oppressive. It was liberating. I wasn't seeking revenge. I wasn't looking back. I wasn't waiting for someone to knock on the door and bring new shit. But if that happens, I'll be ready, because now I knew what I was capable of. But for now, I just lived. For my girls. For myself.